Well, hey there, Valley Baptist Middle School. Pastor Luke here, and it is Tuesday, and that means it is time for another Pastor Luke's Top 5 list. I'm going to be joined by a special guest this morning, and we are going to be looking at my top 5 Bible characters. I don't want to give those away. Top 5 Bible characters of all time. This was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. But let's check out these lists after the bumper. Alright guys, we are back and it is time for our top 5 Bible characters of the Bible of all time in there. My special guest this morning is going to be my wonderful wife, Miss Kate.
Hey guys!
And we are going to be going through our top 5 Bible characters. As I've said, I think this is the 8th time I've said that now.
You're keeping them informed.
I'm keeping them informed. But I will tell you this was a lot harder than I thought.
It needed to be like a top 10 or top 20, honestly.
Yes. Now, there is one stipulation. This is top 5 Bible characters besides Jesus, because obviously he would be number 1.
We're good.
You're good. So we did our top 5, and as I was writing down names, I kept going, ooh, what about this? Ooh, what about that? Ooh, what about that?
Yep, me
and
too.
it was like, oh, what about this person? So it was really hard to narrow them down and get in there. And then there's what I did with my list, and I don't know what you did with your list, is I tried to do the ones that had the biggest impact on my life or that I learned something from.
I would agree with that. That's kind of how I wrote my list.
Okay, because there were ones like the lady in the tent that drove the spike to the guy's house.
JL, Judges.
JL, she was one that popped into my mind. And there was other, Samson would have been one that I would have done. But the problem is Samson was a knucklehead.
Yeah, he
he had a lot of problems. But he was every little boy, every young man just I want to be super strong like Samson. I want to be all this and that. And I just went, no, he doesn't make the cut. But it was a lot harder than I thought. So,
I think each of mine have, just like with the top 5 places to eat, each of mine have a tie that I've learned, like you said, I've learned something from them.
So they all drink Diet Pepsi?
No!
Because if you noticed in her fast food places, they were only ones that had Diet Pepsi.
But it's because I only drink Diet Pepsi and coffee.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Let's jump into these lists.
Okay, let's do this.
What is your number 5?
I get to go first?
Yeah, you're the guest.
Okay, my
guest
number 5.
first.
My number 5. Ooh, okay, my number 5. And I have something in common.
Okay. Reveal it.
Ooh.
All right.
I lost them all. It's Peter!
Peter. That's a good one.
Peter. Okay, see, Peter was a little bit of he was feisty, and I'm feisty, and I actually took a personality test a couple years ago, and one of it said that I was a lot like Peter, strong-willed.
If it was one of those Facebook deals, that's just random.
No, it's not. It was a legit disc test. But anyways, so I've studied Peter and just his temperament and how he served the Lord, and he's a very interesting character to me. So. All
right, my number 5 is Nehemiah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're losing some. We got to redo those stickinesses. Nehemiah, the courage that it took, even though he was an Israelite, to grow up. He grew up in the Chaldeans, under the Persians and the Medes, and he went to the emperor and said, hey, I need to go down and rebuild these walls, rebuild my city. Everybody's just coming in and taking what they want. And then not only that, but the ability to go down and lead this group of people to rebuild the wall in record time, and then to do it with an upbeat attitude and not losing his cool, even though he faced tons and tons of opposition.
Yeah, for sure.
So Nehemiah is a great one to look up to. All right, what about you?
Okay, number 4. I feel like this one's kind of quintessential, but it's David. I love David. Once again, he was a little bit of a knucklehead, but he was a strong warrior for Christ. You guys notice this strong personality that serves the Lord going. But anyways, David, love it. I love the Psalms. I don't know, everything about David. He's such an encouragement. He probably should have been higher up on my list, but I think you guys will realize why once I start getting to the top of the list.
Yeah, we'll see. He should have been higher up on the list. All right, number 4 for me is Daniel.
Oh man, that's my
Daniel. And a lot of people go, oh, it's because the lions didn't think.
No.
No, there's like so much more to the story
much.
of Daniel.
gosh, Daniel. Ooh.
He was such a great leader, such a great prayer warrior. He gives us a lot of end-time stuff. Some of it's really hard to understand. But I do want to encourage you guys that as we go through these lists, if you're like, well, I've never heard of this character, or I don't know enough about him, go and read it.
Yeah.
Go read the book of Nehemiah. Go read the book of Daniel. I recommend you stop after chapter 6, maybe chapter 7. But after chapter 7 of Daniel, he starts talking end-time stuff, and it can get really confusing.
Yeah.
But challenge yourself. Maybe read it. Peter is in the New Testament. Go read about some of the conversations he had with Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus called this dude Satan.
I know.
And David,
which is hilarious. That's why.
yeah. And David is in 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Chronicles. I think he's in Chronicles just a little bit. But you can go and read up on those guys and go from there. All right, number 3, Kate.
Okay, my number 3 is Ruth.
Nice.
I know. It's
Nice.
just, she's such a, talk about like a
That's
strong woman of the Bible. Like she gives us this concept of the kinsman redeemer. I love the idea that like when Naomi's like, get away from me, go back to your homeland. And Ruth is just like, entreat me not to leave you, because where you go, I'm going to go. And it's just, ooh, I'm getting excited. But anyways, Ruth is just such an encouragement of determination and once again that like fighting spirit of doing what she needed to do for the Lord.
All right.
Okay.
I wish you wouldn't have talked so much.
Oh no!
But my number 3 is Ruth as well. Ruth is fantastic. I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me, along with her stick-to-itiveness and her faithfulness to her family, I'm a big family guy, and to God, is the kinsman redeemer aspect of it, and the fact that like Boaz redeemed Ruth and got back all of that they had lost, Jesus redeems us.
Amen.
And I love that story and love about
I
her.
also love that she in her faithfulness was put into the lineage of Christ. And she's not an Israelite. So I loved that part of the story.
Yep. All right, number 2.
Number 2, also famous woman of the Bible, Esther.
Wow, I'm shocked.
Well, okay.
I understand, but I would have thought Ruth would have jumped Esther.
So here's the deal. I think lately, and I think you're going to be really shocked by my number 1. Lately on Sunday mornings in Valley Kids, we've been spending a lot of time in the Old Testament. And so I've had a lot of time to really read up and study some of these Old Testament characters. And just the Esther, once again, we're talking about a strong, faithful, somebody who had to, with her own life, stand up for the Lord and for her people. And I think I love that verse in Ruth that says...
in Ruth?
No, in Esther, excuse me. I love the verse in Esther when it's talking about, when Mordecai is telling her, like, hey, maybe you were made for such a time as this. And I feel like right now, especially with what's going on, it definitely is an encouragement to me. You were made for such a time as this. In fact, anybody who's friends with me and gets regular text messages from me probably has heard that from me.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Interesting fun fact here. Did you know that the name of God is not mentioned in the book of Esther?
Yes, I know. It's
crazy.
Yeah, there are people.
But yet he's all over it and all throughout it, and I think it's an important story, and it's a story that we can find in history. So.
There's just a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of deep content in Esther.
Mm-hmm. There is. All right.
Number 2 for you.
Number 2 for me. Peter.
See, we're kind of doing a little flippy here. I think I know who your number 1 is.
Probably. So Peter is. This was a tough one between Peter and Paul.
Oh, I would agree. Paul's.
I love the Old Testament. Peter's my only New Testament guy on here. But I love the Old Testament. But Peter and Paul both. I mean, there's a lot of New Testament guys who almost made the list, and Paul was one of them. He'll probably be mine. Well, we'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
But Peter's a lot like me. He's kind of brash and upfront in your face, but yet at the same time is full of doubt. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks, but before he tells you, he has this battle of wills inside about what he should say and what he should do. And he wants things done his way and the way he thinks they should be done. And Jesus just tells him, dude, stop it. Actually, he doesn't say, dude, stop it. He goes, get behind me, Satan. But I like Peter. There's a lot we can learn from Peter about what happens when you do doubt God, what happens when you question God, what happens when you deny God, and how you can change that and how you get back into the right wills. He was one of Jesus's top right-hand men, and yet when Jesus was being persecuted and going back and forth, he denied him. He left him. He got rid of him. So Peter's a good one.
I know. Right. It makes for interesting. We're both a lot like Peter, so it's good good marital advice.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on.
Honorable mention.
Yes, honorable mention.
My honorable mention it was between Paul and Daniel because Paul is, oh my gosh, all the letters, the content, just the good, like, the good stuff that he has in the New Testament is so it's so heavy and there's so much of it. But Daniel also, for all the reasons that you were talking about, he's such an encouragement in just the things that God did through Daniel and his willingness to serve him.
Yeah, and that's good. My honorable mentions, there's like a myriad of honorable mentions from Paul to Saul to Samson to Esther. To Matthew, to Luke. I mean, I'm named after Luke.
Yes.
And there's just a myriad of honorable mentions. And so I couldn't narrow it down. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, it was hard enough doing the list, and then I've just got this other list over here that's just flooding through.
Right. Okay, are we going for number one?
Number one. What is your number one?
Are you ready to be shocked?
No, I'm not ready to be shocked.
Nehemiah!
That's awesome.
I feel like our lists are almost reverse of each other right now.
Yeah.
Nehemiah, for all, you kind of already gave the whole spiel about Nehemiah.
Wow, that's interesting. That's good.
I love at one point there's oh gosh, I hope I'm not saying this wrong. There's the story about how they were building the wall with the swords in their hands.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So just this, once again, thematic, this idea of just being a fighter, a leader, somebody who's pushing through against the odds or the enemy, the situation that he's in, and just serving the Lord and doing what he was called to do no matter the cost. And so I love it. I also love the way that he interacted with the people who were trying to build the wall, or the people who were trying to get him to not build the wall, and just that interaction and how smart and wise he was with his correspondence. Because he knew they were trying to trick him. Yeah. And anyways.
Totally knew. I love what's interesting about these things is we don't put these lists together.
Yeah,
together.
We're in separate rooms.
We're in separate rooms to do it at different times. A lot of times we do it the night before, so we have time to think about it, and we put them down. And it's just so funny to me how we have a lot of the same ones. What do you think my number one is?
It's David.
It is David.
It's David. You love King David.
It is King David. I love King David. I have preached through his entire life. Once we finish the Gospel Project, I will probably jump in on King David's life just because it's amazing. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was talking to my dad and I go, I think King Saul is my favorite Bible character, because his life was so crazy and so interesting and he was so strong. I mean, the dude ripped an ox apart and sent it out. Now this is King Saul, not King David. And he sent it out and saying, hey, if you guys don't come and fight, I'm going to come to you and do this to you. And he sent the pieces of the ox out. And I was like, man, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. And my dad goes, are you stupid or are you just a plain idiot? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, read about the guy who comes after him. And so it started this journey of me reading through the life of David, the predecessor of Jesus, the one who came before, that Jesus was going to be, I don't want to say Jesus was going to be a model of David, because he is so much more. He's everything that David was and was not. But that is where the lineage started, with King David leading up to Jesus in his life. Everything that he went through, all of the sin that he had in his life, how he overcame it, the book of Psalms, probably the most impactful, greatest king in the history of the world, and just an amazing human being.
I feel like there's so many things that happen in David's life that we can look to as an example of how to or how not to react in a situation, and just his love for God.
Yeah, unbelievable love for God, even in his darkest of times. I mean, when you read the Psalms and you read some of the Psalms that he wrote, there's some that he's like, God, how dare you do this to me? I can't believe you've got me in this darkest hour doing this. And he just talks about how horrible things are, and he's just basically complaining to God. But every Psalm, when you read it, the last phrase or the last few couplets in there are always, but I will rely on you, but I will wait on you, but I know that you won't forsake me. And so I just love King David. He's awesome. He's amazing.
Hey, have you noticed 4 out of 5 the same?
Yeah.
I know, that's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed that. If you've got an idea for a list, post it in the comments. Make sure you get the bell on, hit the subscribe button, and join us for more Top 5 videos in the coming weeks. We've got some exciting lists planned, and it should be fun and good. So we will see you later. Have a great day. God bless.
Bye.